Good day everyone, Dr. Polaris here. Hyenas are a family of Feliform Carnivorans native to Africa, the Middle East and India. Famous for their bone-crushing ability and association with scavenging, there are 4 living genera: the striped hyena, the brown hyena, the spotted hyena and the ardwolf. Like nimravids, hyenas are a group that display many convergent traits with other carnivorans. Although phylogenetically they are closer to felines and viverids, and belong to the Feliform category, hyenas are behaviourally and morphologically similar to canids in several elements of convergent evolution. Both hyenas and canines are non-arboreal, cursorial hunters that catch their prey with their teeth rather than claws. Both eat food quickly and may store it, and their calloused feet with large, blunt, non-retractable claws are adapted for running and making sharp turns. However, the hyena's grooming, scent marking, defecating habits, mating and parental behaviour are consistent with that of other feliforms. Hyenas first arose in Eurasia during the Miocene period from viverid-like ancestors, and diversified into 2 distinct types: lightly built dog-like hyenas and robust bone-crushing forms. Although the dog-like hyenas thrived up to 15 million years ago, with one taxon colonising North America, they became extinct after a climate change event, along with the arrival of canids into Eurasia. Of the dog-like hyena lineage, only the insectivorous ardwolf survived, while the bone-crushing hyenas became the undisputed top scavengers of Eurasia and Africa. Hyenas originated in the jungles of Miocene Eurasia 22 million years ago, when most early feliform species were still largely arboreal. The first ancestral hyenas were likely similar to the modern African civet. One of the earliest hyena species described, Plioviverops, was a slender civet-like animal that inhabited Eurasia 20 to 22 million years ago, and is identifiable as a hyenid by the structure of the middle ear and dentition. Native to southern Europe in the late Miocene, Plioviverops was a far more generalised animal than modern hyenas. The structure of its teeth suggests this animal was an omnivore, eating both fruit and small animals. The tail was also longer than in its more derived relatives, and it was still a capable climber, much like earlier feliforms. A similarly basal genus was Protictitherium. Native to Eurasia during the Miocene and Pliocene, this animal was also rather civet-like and omnivorous. The various species were small animals with retractable claws, who probably spent the majority of their time in trees, hunting insects and other small prey. Its body was long and slender with fairly short legs, suggesting that it was not a fast-running hunter. Although one of the first and most primitive hyena genre to appear, they were quite successful, appearing around 15 million years ago and surviving for 4 to 5 million years. Along with Plioviverops, Protictitherium represents the ancestral condition for hyenids, with more derived forms moving increasingly away from omnivory and towards a more active predatory lifestyle. The genus Thalassictis was a more carnivorous animal, although still rather small by the standards of the family. Native to the Miocene of Afro-Eurasia, Thalassictis was reminiscent of basal canids such as the grey fox or raccoon dog in terms of ecological niche. Interestingly, it seems that this mesocarnivore was a close relative of the unusual insectivorous ardwolf native to sub-Saharan Africa in modern times. Unlike many of its relatives in the order Carnivora, the ardwolf does not hunt large animals. It eats insects and their larvae, mainly termites. One ardwolf can lap up as many as 250,000 termites in a single sitting, using its long sticky tongue. Ardwolves are shy and nocturnal, sleeping in burrows by day. They have often been mistaken for solitary animals. In fact, they live in monogamous pairs with their young. The animal's unusual shift in lifestyle can be explained by the arrival of the canids from North America during the late Miocene. Switching to an insectivorous niche allowed ancestral aardwolves to avoid competition from dogs, leaving them as the only modern representatives of the more basal canid-type hyenas. While the aardwolf specialised in its own strange direction, the more derived genus Ictitherium was more comparable to a jackal in size and niche. Measuring up to 1.2 metres long, Ictitherium was clearly a very successful animal, as up to 8 potential species are known with a range stretching across Eurasia and Africa. Ichthyotherium is also speculated to have lived in social groups, a theory based upon the discovery of multiple individuals being found together. If this interpretation is correct, then Ichthyotherium would be one of the earliest definitively proven examples of social animals in carnivoran mammals so far known. Additionally, by going around in large numbers, they may have been able to survive amongst other predators such as the larger barbarophilids and amphicyonids. This transitioned into forms such as Hyenatherium, which can be considered an intermediate form between the more civet-like basal hyenas and the derived running and bone-crushing forms. Hyenatherium possessed longer legs and was a more capable runner than forms more basal than it. It was also larger, standing about 60 centimeters tall at the shoulder, and was similar in size to the modern striped hyena. However, this was an animal not adapted for bone crushing, with its jaws and teeth convergently resembling those of canids such as jackals or coyotes. Indeed, animals like Hyenatherium gave rise to 4 fossil genera of running hyenas and the Durophagus family Hyenae, to which the modern brown, spotted and striped hyenas belong. The so-called running hyenas did not form a subfamily of their own, but instead were a grade leading up to Hyenae. The most basal of these was Lycaena, a long-legged cursorial predator of the latest Miocene and Pliocene. Far more famous was the later Chasmoporthetes of the Pliocene and early Pleistocene, living from 4.9 to 780,000 years ago. The genus probably arose from the Eurasian Miocene hyenas, such as Thalassictis or Lycaena, with Chasmoporthetes borisiaci being the oldest known representative. The species C. ossifragus was the only hyena to cross the Bering Land Bridge into the Americas, and ranged over what is now Arizona and Mexico until roughly 1.5 million years ago. Recent finds suggest that the genus was also native to Beringia during the Pleistocene. The limb bones of Chasmoporthetes were long and slender like those of cheetahs, and its cheek teeth were slender and sharp-edged like those of a cat. Chasmoporthetes likely inhabited open ground and was a daytime hunter. In Europe, the species C. lunensis competed with the giant cheetah Acinonyx pardinensis, and may have preyed upon the small Bourbon gazelle and the chamois antelope. The North American C. ossifragus was built similarly to its European relative, but had slightly more robust jaws and teeth. It may have preyed on the giant marmot Panemarmota, and competed with the far more numerous borophagine canids. A study on the genus's premolar intercuspid notches indicated that Chasmoporthetes was likely hypercarnivorous, rather than durophagus as its modern cousins, excluding the ardwolf, are. The family Hyenae first appeared 10 to 14 million years ago. The arrival of ancestral bone-crushing hyenas coincided with the decline of the similarly built family Percrocutidae, another family of Feliform Carnivorans. The bone-crushing hyenas survived the changes in climate and the arrival of canids, which wiped out the dog-like hyenas, though they never crossed into North America, as their niche there had already been taken by the borophagine canids. By 5 million years ago, the bone-crushing hyenas had become the dominant scavengers of Eurasia, primarily feeding on large herbivore carcasses felled by saber-toothed cats. The oldest and most basal of the bone-crushing hyenas were the genera Met-hyena and Palin-hyena. These were smaller than their modern relatives, but already possessed the enlarged, shearing carnassial teeth typical of durophagus predators. Next to split off was a clade that contains the striped and brown hyenas along with their extinct ancestors. The striped hyena, creatively named hyena, is a species native to North and East Africa, the Middle East, the Caucasus, Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent. It is the smallest of the true hyenas and retains many primitive viverid-like characteristics lost in larger species, having a smaller and less specialised skull. Though primarily a scavenger, large specimens have been known to kill their own prey, and attacks on humans have occurred on rare occasions. The striped hyena is a monogamous animal, with both males and females assisting one another in raising the cubs. A nocturnal animal, it typically only emerges in complete darkness and is quick to return to its lair before sunrise. Although it has a habit of feigning death when attacked, It has been known to stand its ground against larger predators in disputes over food. The striped hyena is primarily a scavenger, which feeds on ungulate carcasses in different stages of decomposition, with fresh bones, cartilages, ligament and bone marrow being eaten. It crushes long bones into fine particles and swallows them, though sometimes entire bones are eaten whole. It is not a fussy eater, though it has an aversion to vulture flesh. It will occasionally attack and kill any animal it can overcome. They hunt prey by running it down, grabbing its flanks or groin and inflicting mortal wounds. The species may have evolved from Hyena namaquensis of Pliocene Africa. Striped hyena fossils are common on the continent, with records going back as far as the Middle Pleistocene. As fossil striped hyenas are absent from the Mediterranean region, it is likely that the species is a relatively late invader to Eurasia, having spread outside Africa only after the extinction of spotted hyenas there at the end of the last glacial period. The striped hyena occurred for some time in Europe during the Pleistocene, having been previously widespread in France and Germany. It also occurred in Austria, Portugal, and the Genista caves in Gibraltar. The European form was similar in appearance to those in Africa, but was larger, being comparable in size to the brown hyena. Speaking of which, the brown hyena has a much more restricted range than its cousin, being native only to southwestern Africa. It is also the rarest of the hyenas with low overall population numbers. The animal inhabits desert areas, semi-desert and open woodlands in South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe and Mozambique. Brown hyenas are distinguished from other species by their long, shaggy, dark brown coat, pointed ears and short tail. Their legs are striped brown and white, and adults have a distinct cream-coloured ruff of fur around their necks. This can be raised up over the hackles during antagonistic behaviour. They have powerful jaws. Young animals can crack the leg bones of springboks within 5 minutes of birth, though this ability deteriorates with age and dental wear. The skulls of brown hyenas are larger than those of the striped hyena, and their dentition is more robust, indicating a less generalised dietary adaptation. They have a social hierarchy comparable to those of wolves, with a mated pair living with their offspring. They live in clans composed of extended families of 4 to 6 individuals. Clans defend their territory and all members cooperate in raising cubs. Brown hyenas maintain a stable clan hierarchy through ritualised aggressive displays and mock fights. They are primarily scavengers, the bulk of whose diet consists of carcasses killed by larger predators, but they may supplement their diet with rodents, insects, eggs, fruit and fungi. The sister clade of the striped and brown hyenas is the spotted hyena lineage. Originating with Pliocrocuta, this group went on to produce the largest members of the entire family. Indeed, the genus Pachycrocuta brevirostris, colloquially known as the giant short-faced hyena, stood a metre tall at the shoulder and weighed up to 150 kilograms, roughly the size of a lioness. Fossil remains have been found broadly in Eurasia and southern and eastern Africa. Most material consists of fragmented remains, usually of the skull, but a cache of very complete bone material was unearthed at the famous Zhongquandun site, which probably represents the remains of animals using these caves as lairs for many millennia. Similar to the modern-day striped hyena, it was probably primarily a kleptoparasitic scavenger of the kills of other predators, such as the saber-toothed cats. Pachycrocuta scavenged for food, probably preferentially so, because it was a heavy-set animal not built for chasing prey over long distances. In this respect, it would have differed from the spotted hyena of today, which is a more nimble animal that, contrary to its image as a scavenger, usually kills almost all of its own food, but often gets displaced by lions. Apparently, it was ecologically close enough to its smaller relative that they are never found at contemporary sites in the same region. The modern spotted hyena of the genus Crocuta diverged from the genus Hyena, which contains the striped and brown hyenas, about 10 million years ago. The ancestors of the spotted hyena probably developed social behaviours in response to increased pressure from other predators on carcasses, which forced them to operate in teams. At one point in their evolution, Spotted hyenas developed sharp carnassials behind their crushing premolars. This rendered waiting for prey to die no longer a necessity, as in the case for brown or striped hyenas, and thus became pack hunters as well as scavengers. They began forming increasingly larger territories, necessitated by the fact their prey was often migratory, and long chases in a small territory would have caused them to encroach into another clan's land. It has been theorised that female dominance in spotted hyena clans could be an adaptation in order to successfully compete with males on kills, and thus ensure that enough milk is produced for their cubs. Another theory is that it is an adaptation to the length of time it takes for cubs to develop their massive skulls and jaws, thus necessitating greater attention and dominating behaviours from females. Its appearance in Europe and China during the Pleistocene coincided with the decline and eventual extinction of Pachycrocuta brevirostris, the giant hyena. As there is no evidence of environmental change being responsible, it is likely that the giant short-faced hyena became extinct due to competition with the modern forms. The skull of the spotted hyena differs from that of its striped relatives by its much greater size and narrower sagittal crest. For its size, the spotted hyena has one of the most powerfully built skulls of any carnivoran. The dentition is more dual-purpose than that of other modern hyena species, which are mostly scavengers. The spotted hyena also has its carnassials situated behind the premolars, which allows it to crush food while the prey is still alive. Combined with large jaw muscles and a special vaulting to protect the skull against large forces, these characteristics give the spotted hyena a powerful bite, which is 40% more powerful than a leopard's. The jaws of the spotted hyena outmatch those of the brown bear in bone-crushing ability, and free-ranging hyenas have been observed to crack open the long bones of giraffes measuring 7 centimeters in diameter. The spotted hyena is also a highly intelligent animal, in contrast to popular stereotypes about it. The intelligence of the spotted hyena was attested to by Dutch colonists in the 19th century, who noted that hyenas were exceedingly cunning and suspicious, particularly after successfully escaping from traps. They seemed to plan on hunting specific species in advance. Hyenas have often observed to engage in activities such as scent marking before setting off to hunt zebras, a behaviour which does not occur when they target other prey species. Also, spotted hyenas have been recorded to utilise deceptive behaviour, including giving alarm calls during feeding when no enemies are present, thus frightening off other hyenas and allowing them to temporarily eat in peace. Similarly, mothers will emit alarm calls while attempting to interrupt attacks on their cubs by others. Crocuta spelaea, also known as the Ice Age spotted hyena, was a subspecies which ranged from the Iberian Peninsula to eastern Siberia. It is one of the best known mammals of the Ice Age, and is well represented in many European bone caves. The cave hyena was a highly specialised animal, with its progressive and regressive features being more developed than in its modern African relative. It preyed on large mammals, primarily wild horses, steppe bison and woolly rhinoceros, and was responsible for the accumulation of hundreds of large Pleistocene mammal bones in areas including horizontal caves, sinkholes, mud pits and muddy areas along rivers. The cause of the cave hyena's extinction is not fully understood, though it could have been due to a combination of factors, including climate change and competition with other predators. The European cave hyena was much larger than its modern relative, having an estimated weight of 102 kilograms. In late Pleistocene specimens from Europe, the cave hyena's metacarpals and metatarsals are shorter and thicker, while the humerus and femur are longer, thus indicating adaptations to a different habitat from that of the modern spotted hyena. As with the African subspecies, female cave hyenas were larger than their male counterparts. Paleolithic rock art depicting the animal shows that it retained the spotted pelt of its African relative. And with that we come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching everyone. Next week I'll be covering the American lion, Panthera atrox. See you again soon. Cheerio.